Hey everyone, this is Lucas Acosta, and welcome to the Foojee Show, episode number 10 today. And I'm joined by Rob McKinney. Super excited to have Rob on the show today. Now, Rob, you brought some props on to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. Lucas, thank you again so much for having me on the Foojee Show.
Absolutely.
I'm pumped to be here. I just got off a red eye from the SMACNA annual convention in Phoenix. I was talking about a lot of this technology. So what do I do at the end of the day? I work for a company called JB Knowledge. I'm a construction technologist. That means I used to be a safety guy. That's why I have on the vest. And I learned how to use mobile apps and devices to improve our business, our workflows. And then I transitioned to a speaker and a podcaster and blogger, all kinds of crazy stuff.
I feel like you created your role.
Absolutely.
You know, Rob and I met a few years ago.
I was in dire need and needed your help.
He worked at a construction company, and he was not just helping his company, the company he worked in, but other construction companies too, helping them adopt the iPad, apps in the industry to really change how things are going. And we were just hamming it up a second ago, and I asked him, you know, Rob, where are we in this transition in the construction industry when it comes to like digitizing things? And I was like, are we like halfway through that transition? And what was your answer?
We're just really starting, honestly. It's amazing that I still have to convince companies to buy a $500 iPad, that's a good idea, while they still buy 70,000 dually trucks and $14,000 pieces of equipment and hammer drills and crazy stuff. And then, well, what would they do with that iPad? That's just for Angry Birds and games.
Of course.
Netflix.
Yeah. Right.
No, there's 5 workflows I could talk to them about all day long that can fundamentally transform a business.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect segue. And so there's so much we can go into. You know, Rob doesn't just know an app for each part of construction. He knows 5 apps for each construction company. And just that whole industry, right? Architecture, design, safety, management. And so what I wanted to do today, when I asked Rob on, hey, I said, we can go in so many directions. Let's just cover these like 5 workflows, 5 main areas of an organization. And maybe like just cream of the crop, let's hit kind of your favorite app in each area of construction. I want to make this app applicable. But this might just be a start of a conversation. You know, depending on the feedback we get, I see you coming on board. He just breathes this stuff, and so I love hearing what apps he's using that I maybe haven't heard about and whatnot. So let's just jump in with the first one. So what's your first workflow you want to start with?
We'll start with safety. Safety is my background. Safety is one of the first workflows that I kind of learned and knew the best. And the idea was, how would you take these written checklists, these paper-based forms, these tickets, even Excel-based products, and how could you do it in real time? And how would you do it on a mobile device? So one of the best ones that I'm looking at right now is called Safesite. It was actually an Australian-based company that I used to talk to the founder at 8 p.m. Eastern on Skype in his morning and talk and look at his product and figure it out. And then he moved it over to the U.S. What's interesting about it is it does the checklist, but it also looks for what we call behavior-based safety. It's trying to find events and either say this is a safe event or an unsafe. But where it really starts to get crazy is they're actually using artificial intelligence, AI. And when I'm talking about AI, so this sits on top of his app, and what they're looking to do is, let's say that you have a company and you're working in Tampa, Florida, and next week, you know, Guns N' Roses is playing on Thursday night. There could be a slight chance that you could have dehydrated crews on Friday. It suggests that you might want to do a toolbox talk on dehydration next Friday. Yes.
That's awesome.
Or weather events. It's looking for local social events, weather events, and suggesting toolbox talks.
Man, that's fascinating to hear. You know, when you first mentioned Safesite, the first sort of thing I look for when looking for an app, okay, is can it replace the paper version? Like, can this digital option replace the paper solution or analog solution?
That's right.
And that's usually what our clients are looking for too. It's like, all right, let me make sure what I used to be able to do can do everything, or you know, the new one can do everything I used to do. And I think that's a good step one when it comes to understanding the iPad, or just technology in general. But what I'm really interested in hearing is how it's actually changing the game. And it sounds like Safesite is doing that.
Absolutely.
It's actually enhancing what the analog method could have never done.
Correct.
You know?
Well, you still have to have a core workflow. That's one thing I have to stress to companies constantly is we cannot give you apps to build a workflow. You have to have that workflow, the baseline. But perhaps you were using a digital format of Excel, some kind of analog program that was very hard and laborious, because who's going to take a laptop like these around on a site? It has to be mobile. It has to be freeform in some respect and let you do these things. So Safesite's a great app where it can do those observations. It has that predictive power of looking at local events and giving you information and telling you how to make a change. It's a crazy time with how a lot of these apps are working, that it's not just in a safety sense. You don't want to be compliant, because we always would say OSHA is the minimum. This is the bare minimum you have to do to be federally compliant. We're talking performance, because the companies want to be better. They want to protect their employees, their workforce, and you need a tool that'll let you do that. So Safesite's a great option.
That was great. I mean, I'm sure you can go into many safety-related apps. Let's touch on the next sort of main workflow.
Absolutely. So plans. Anybody working in the construction industry, you build off the plans. I used to call them the blueprints, and they literally were paper. When I started in the industry around 15 years ago, there was lots of paper. Even 5 years ago, lots of paper. I still see lots of paper. There's always going to be a place for it. But how would you carry around 20 pounds of rolled drawings on a job site?
Right.
How do you manage 8 revisions of drawings where, as a new drawing comes out again and again and again, how do you know which one's the most current? That was a big problem that we had when I first met you. How do we deal with all these plans on the computer, and how do we put them on an app? Well, we found out one called PlanGrid that I actually can remember when that company had 12 employees.
Yeah, like they were getting started when we were using
right out of beta.
Yep.
And now they've blown up and they do amazing things. And this is where we're talking about that workflow of how would you make sure that here's the first drawing, that's revision 1, and then here comes revision 2, and 3, and 4, and hopefully no more than that, but I've been up to 16, 17 revisions.
Right.
Always push the most current one on top so you can see it.
Right, and then every user of PlanGrid in your, at the site is getting every single update.
That's right.
Right, when adjustments need to be made by the architecture firm or whatnot. So pretty fascinating when I saw it. Like I'm not even in, I'm not in the construction industry every single day, but when I first saw it a few years ago, I just immediately, you just know when something's going to stick.
Absolutely.
It's hard to pass that up. Awesome. What's the next workflow to touch on?
Daily reports. Every industry should be writing down what you do every day. In construction, for example, a foreman, project manager, superintendent has to document how many companies worked on the site, how many crew members were there, materials delivered, were there any inspections. But some people don't do that. I still see a lot of writing, and then it goes in, file 13. It gets in mysterious logbooks that never go anywhere.
Right, and like you said, this applies to, I think, any industry.
That's right.
Right now we're talking about construction, but if you're doing daily reports of any type you or your team is, you've got a pretty good one that just lets you automate that. And also if you want to change something that your whole team fills out daily, you're not having to reprint things or send them a new Excel version, and then you still have people that are using an old Excel version, right? So what's your app of choice for this type of application?
My favorite one right now is called Ricoh. It's got an interesting scenario where every team member would fill out their daily report on a smartphone or a tablet, and it goes to the cloud-based server. What is really interesting is at the end of the day, it'll snapshot that report, and it says the location, the weather, the crews, and you can do a custom survey where you can put your own questions in. Mine, I think I had 8 different ones where I basically would ask them, did you have an accident? Were there any citations issued? Any inspections? Any directives from the owner?
And you're writing all these?
And this is typed in, or you can actually it'll do voice-to-text recognition. Now, of course, being down the South, that's a slippery slope with dialects, linguistics. Gets a little crazy every now and then.
Right.
But what's awesome is, let's say you have 5 different projects in this platform. The owner or whoever's in charge of the crews, the project manager, they can go to their dashboard on the computer every morning, and it has a pie chart that shows every piece of the pie, which will be every project. So if there's 5 slices, hopefully they're all green. Green is good. They did the report. But if there's one sliver that's red, what do you think red means?
Probably bad.
Bad. They didn't do it. So who gets a call at 7:15? Lucas, where's your daily report? Yeah. And they have to go in and do it. But they can take all the information and complete it and send it back. So that's the other thing. People get freaked out about using mobile apps and digital that won't hold up in court. If you don't write it down in ink, okay, well, they figured out how to carbonate ink years ago and know when you actually wrote that the first time and if it's the same type of ink. Well, here, they can do digital stamps, digital signatures. They know that if you open up the iPad and you and I are talking here and I wrote something down, it'll time stamp, date stamp, geo stamp.
Right.
If I go downstairs to Starbucks and add to it, it knows I was down there.
Totally. Wow. So this is called Raken, right? R-A-K-E-N.
That's right.
Awesome. What's the next workflow? This is a really cool one.
Photos. Every company should be taking photos. Now in construction, we take photos of work in progress, damage, safety, post-work, fill in the blank. If you're maintaining a building, if you're doing any kind of workflow practically, you take photos. But the kicker is, if you have them on these awesome mobile devices, how do they get from the mobile device back to your computer to a server that you can use them find them
Right.
and leverage them in the future.
Because a lot of times, to kind of elaborate on that, it's not about capturing. Well, it is about capturing, but it's about when you need that photo, like in 2 years.
That's right.
Right? When in a hotel building on the 12th floor, a bathtub is leaking.
Yep.
You need, part of that audit process is to see, was it built to spec to begin with, right?
What's behind those walls? What's up in those ceilings?
Sure. So it's about that audit trail and then being able to find that needle in the haystack. So you actually had 2 main apps for this one. What app do you lead with?
The one I normally like to show is actually a homegrown solution. That's Fotoin Mobile. That's actually an Atlanta-based company that I found about the same time that we met. That what's interesting is it works on your smartphone and a tablet. And the interesting thing is that it takes off your phone,
Yep.
sends it to a cloud, but puts it to a server. And so it timestamps, date stamps, geo stamps, but it lets you put custom tags on there where for me, for example, I had a macro tag. It said concrete. I could do a micro tag that would say slab or column.
Okay.
You could add in your own notes, column line 1, column line 2. All of that keywords, the metadata is searchable. You can find it on your server now.
Right. And then to expound on that, every person on your job site is using an iPad with Fotoin installed, or iPhone, okay? But they're all part of the same account.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So they're all syncing to it seems so simple, such a simple part of the workflow, but that's usually where photo managing solutions fall apart.
Yes.
Is how do we import all of these into one central place easily, where we're not having to remind people to upload them or plug their camera into their computer. And what I love about this app is that the actual end users don't have to think about it, right?
Nope.
It's uploading it as soon as it connects to Wi-Fi, so your data rates don't skyrocket. So really elegant solution. It's cool to see, that they're still around, still thriving, because they were early whenever we started.
Very early.
What's the other one that you're using?
Now, the next world, trying to convince people to take a lot of photos and use photos is a good idea. Now everyone's doing video. Well, video files are huge.
Yep.
How would you ever organize and structure video files? So I came across a platform called smartvid.io. And the idea is this is a cloud-based product that, again, on the smartphone or the tablet, you take video or photos and you upload them.
Okay.
Where it gets very interesting is the way they've written their program. It has AI or artificial intelligence on top of it. And it's crawling these files looking for objects. And it would suggest things. So I took a test picture up in Clarksville, Georgia, of the back of a building that had just been pressure washed.
Okay.
And so there was fence and asphalt paving, and it was wet. It had a wet streak in it.
Yeah.
And it suggested to me that was parking lot. Yes. Water. Wow. It noticed water in the asphalt.
Yeah.
So every time I start taking more pictures, it's finding things. It's machine learning by object recognition and me confirming that that's a truck, yes. That's a red truck, yes.
So what it's doing is reducing the need for your end users to be tagging.
Absolutely.
Things, right.
Absolutely.
And so not to take away the next part from you, but he said that it also does this with video.
It does. So if I'm recording a video and said, okay, I just pressure washed the back area of Project X, Project X, pressure wash, water, concrete, whatever keywords you put in, it starts tagging those.
And so it's extracting the audio,
right,
and tagging them based on the words you're saying, including asphalt or red truck or whatever it might be. Man, and that's awesome.
It just dumps it into one folder. So instead of being Fotoin, where it's very systematized and rigid, it's freeform. It's just dumping everything into one bucket, but you pull out what you want based on the keywords you're entering or searching for.
It's so cool to just see AI being used for these real work applications. Not necessarily, like how's the weather today, or can you make a reminder for me, which is great. But this really takes it to that next level. Cool. Yeah. So I think that was workflow 4.
That's
right?
number 4.
We've got one more workflow. What's that?
Time entry. How do you keep track of paying your employees? In construction, it's generally an 8-hour day. Keeping track of 8 hours is not hard. What's hard is in 8 hours, how many phase codes they're working on, because a phase code is for setup, for cleanup, welding, form work, fill in the blank. I've talked to companies that have dozens of phase codes to pay their employees to hundreds. So you need a great third-party solution that ideally you would have on a smartphone where every employee would have that app. And where it really starts to get interesting, it's not just that the employee has the app on their phone, but that the app maybe has a geofence. So when I literally walked into your office, it would have clocked me in because it knew I was here at Foojee today.
Got it.
As soon as I walk back out in the hallway, it clocks me out. I walk back in, clocks me out. It's a dog collar fence, basically, of tracking your productivity. And so the employees can opt in and clock themselves in, or maybe a foreman clocks everyone in, but it's a way to make it easier to show where you're working. So it's paying them at level 1. It's tracking the phase codes, which give you, it's kind of the holy grail in construction right now, productivity.
Yeah, of course. And this, again, it's reducing it's not just making your timesheet digital, right? So that, hey, it's in the cloud and it's backed up, but it's actually it's changing the way you work.
Yep.
You're not forgetting to make those time entries, right?
Correct.
Man, that's been awesome. Now, you brought a couple of extra goodies. We're going to go rogue for just a second. I want to at least acknowledge some of these cool gadgets that you brought in. And then what we want to do is get any questions from you guys through the YouTube comments or Instagram, Twitter. Just hashtag us AskFoojee. Would love to see what other types of construction, design, architectural questions or apps that you're interested in. And then I'm sure we can have you back, in not too distant future. So what have you here? You showed me this camera. This isn't just any old camera.
No, sir. This is from Seek Thermal. This is the Compact Pro. This is actually thermal digital image camera. So it plugs into the bottom of my iPhone.
Yep.
And what it does is it takes a thermal scan. So let's say there's some HVAC registers in this room. And let's say you guys thought it might be a little too hot in here. I could use it and look at it, and it'll actually register and tell me the air temperature coming out of there.
Right.
Or let's say you said the windows are too hot. We could look for the thermal gain. It's looking for highs and lows because it's doing a thermal scan, but it'll pinpoint the actual temperature in the image. This is under $500, fits in your pocket, and you can clip it on to any iPhone. Crazy.
Really reduces your load, right?
It does.
Instead of having to carry a separate entire camera for it. That's
this big and costs thousands of dollars. Or you hire a crew for hundreds of dollars an hour. Now put this on a crew, put this on a foreman. He can take a look at stuff.
Awesome. All right, what's the next one right here?
The fun one, 360 camera. This is the Ricoh Theta S. This has 2 cameras back-to-back, 180-degree fisheye that sit simultaneously and takes one picture. Then the software stitches it together. So a few years ago, the rage was, I took a 360 camera picture. We're talking, it was the donut shot, right?
Right, yep.
This is 360 spherical. It sees everything.
Wow.
So let's say I was going to come here to document your office. How many pictures would I have to walk around and start taking of all the walls and the ceilings versus I could set this right in the middle? Boom, one shot.
So question for you, does this camera sync back into the Fotoin app, or does it have its own proprietary software to manage that?
It has its own app currently, and you can also export them to YouTube. There's a couple different commercial applications where it's more kind of personal use now. We're seeing some construction grade and industrial grade applications. I've reached out to several people that all said, it's kind of a big file, Rob. We need a little bit more time to figure out how to pull this in. Because
we're still early.
Yes, very early. This camera, this is only the 2nd generation, but it's something we're testing out in workflows now to reduce how many pictures you take and how much video you take, because you can just get one shot at a short burst, done.
Yeah. I love seeing these products with clear use cases, in the type of work you're doing. So thank you so much for coming out. I just can't say that enough. You bring in so much knowledge from the field, and you get to use these apps every single day.
That's fun.
How we're usually working together is we help with the deployment and the configuration of the iPads, but we absolutely lean on Rob to know, which apps are going to be the best for a certain type of application in an organization. So if people want to find out more about you or your podcast, ConApp Trio, awesome podcast, how can people find out more?
Very easily. So the company I work for, again, is JB Knowledge. You can find us at jbknowledge.com. Any of our social media will be at JB Knowledge. If you want to see my site, it's ConApp Guru or at ConApp Guru. And that's where I do my blog post and write about apps and reviews. And then the fun one, if you don't like to read, because some people don't, you can listen to us. That's Contact Trio. So search for at Contact Trio, or it'll also be on the JB Knowledge page. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. And thank you guys for watching the Foojee Show. We're here trying to make the Apple products work better at work. So hashtag us with any questions that you have. Would love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you find value in these episodes, be sure to subscribe so you'll get notified every time a new one is released. Can I say good morning? Okay, here we go. Hey, welcome to the Foojee. Nope.